Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Hard Things Podcast. This is your host, Blaine Burgess. Very quickly, I'm going to verify. I believe this is episode 56. I'd be very surprised if I was wrong. Haha, there it is. Episode 56. And today is a bit of a heavy day, also a bit of a light day. I've said before on the podcast, it's about 50-50 in life. But today, I do feel an immense amount of gratitude for a burden that's been lifted off of me. Possibly self-imposed for many years, maybe even up to 20 years, two whole decades. At times, I've used this burden to strengthen myself, and other times I've used it to punish myself. And the line between those two things is very thin. But just recent events in my life, starting a new trimester at school, I finally was kind of sick of punishing myself, and even sick of trying to beneficially strengthen myself. Like all the struggle, no matter what it was just a struggle. And again, it was self-imposed. And I think the most accurate thing I can use to describe it is the word sacrifice. And I think in life, we all struggle with the kind of somewhat of the absurdity of reality, the absurdity of people, the absurdity of ourselves. It's funny, like everything you see in the world is genuinely a reflection of who you are. And I've been coming to terms with that probably for the last couple of years. And you catch yourself criticizing and judging, and you just realize, like, this is me, this is what I'm doing, this is what's in my heart. It's been reflected to me, and I'm reflecting it back. And as a result, I make myself suffer. I make myself sacrifice. And I think this is the divine spark in each of us. And like in time, we each dole out our own punishment until we feel satisfied. Until part of us gets sick of it. And until maybe just till it's time. And for whatever reason, this week, last couple weeks, but especially this week, it's kind of been, I've just felt a shift in myself, and today it just kind of clicked into place, that last little, couple percentage points of the change. And so I'm going to start pretty broad. This is the way I want to go. So I mentioned that the last 2 decades have been spent in a struggle of my own making. And I kind of had an epiphany, like as I felt this weight lift off my shoulders. I started to think about the 5 stages of grief. For whatever reason, I don't know exactly why it came up in my mind. But if you're not familiar, they are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And if I think of the last 20 years, I think I've been bouncing around between those 5 states really like the entire time. And like if I go back, there's times where I'm just in denial, there's times where I'm angry, bargaining, depressed, and there's times where I've been like healthier and more accepting of my circumstances, but not 100% accepting. And I try to maybe work outside of my competency, so to speak, and I'm going to come back to that idea. But first, I want to mention that the 5 stages of grief I think are great, but they definitely aren't linear. You can zigzag between all of them. And also, I think it's missing 2 stages. So before denial, where you kind of know the problem, but you're not willing to acknowledge it yet. I think even deeper than that, there's kind of dissociation. And this is another state that I found myself in. It's deeper than depression. It's deeper than sadness. It's actually apathy. It's the lack of an emotion. And I think it's like a kind of a cousin to denial, but it's denial by even, it's just kind of like deleting the problem altogether. Denial means that we acknowledge that could be the problem, but we're like, nah, that's not the problem. Dissociation is literally like the problem is deleted. It doesn't exist. And that probably should be added into the theory of grief. And then on the other side, and people who have gone through the 5 stages, whether linearly or, I don't know, anyone who's exited it, probably a very small percentage of people, maybe they exit it for a time or not, but even acceptance is kind of a still allowing it to linger. And I think the feeling I had when the weight lifted off my shoulders, the way I would describe it is an exit, an exodus, so to speak. So you accept it, but then you also let it go. That letting go, that problem leaving the area, I think is a 7th kind of stage of grief. And I think that is more permanent. Now, you may enter the stages of grief for another issue at a later date. But hopefully going through them in whatever capacity you do, hopefully you're more skilled, can do it more quickly. I know people, especially in a crisis, can navigate through the stages of grief very quickly and get to the right solution, accept it and let it go before maybe I even was in denial in the past. So, yeah, very, very interesting thoughts that came to me semi-spontaneously as this, as I had this feeling of exit and exodus. Really just an opening to whatever comes next. So along with that, I want to go back to depression and acceptance and bargaining even. There is, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before. May have. If you're listening to this, you probably didn't listen to the episode where I did, so it doesn't matter. You're going to get a double dose of be who you can afford to be is the phrase that comes to mind. So this is something that has come up on the Pat McAfee show on ESPN, and they usually talk about it in reference to money and like NFL contracts and players. You know, the best players, no matter what, they get paid. And I genuinely believe in yields beyond money. I think a lot of times it's easy for us to get stuck on money and business and kind of the intricacies of our world as it exists now. It's genuinely safer than ever in some ways, and genuinely just as dangerous in new and evolving ways. But yields beyond money and be who you can afford to be. So it's easy to get confused, I think, the value of people. If you take people at the end of their life, assuming that they master the 5 stages of grief and they have what Carl Jung liked to call a supreme moral effort, or an excellent therapist, or an excellent family and loved ones, people genuinely can grow throughout their life, and end up, everyone, I believe, grows, but some grow, linearly, and some grow exponentially, and human potential, I believe, is genuinely unlimited when it comes to spirituality and the mind. Like physically, you can only, we can keep running faster, but a 3-second 40-yard dash, probably not going to happen. Right now we're in the 4s, and the amount of time and augmentation it would take to hit that 3-second mark, it's just going to be a long time. Not saying it can't happen, but I think mentally and spiritually we have unlimited resources. If you so choose, like this is your mission impossible. Your mission, should you accept it or choose it, or should you choose to accept it, whatever, you know what I mean. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but yeah, be who you can afford to be. Also can be in reference to a spiritual thing. It doesn't have to be you're an NFL player that's going to get paid money for your limited physical body. It can be, what are you willing to do with your mind? How far are you willing to go? And I think as human beings, we can sense when people have that trait, that like they're going far in their lives. I don't know when this person's going to perfect their version of themselves. Could be 57, could be 37, could be 87. I have no idea what age you're going to reach that, but I can just feel that that person is an excellent human being. And I think when you feel that love and admiration for someone, you cannot hold back your expression of how much you admire that, how much you love the fact of what that person can and will do. And you have to believe in them. This is something, as I've grown into my ability to love people, you can kind of see when people, you can feel when, what trajectory someone is on. And you can feel, I could see a homeless person on the street and just feel their spirit and be willing to help them, because I know 20 years from now, their life's going to be entirely different. Whatever they do with their life is going to be like they're going to crawl their way out of whatever got them into that mess. And you obviously can't do it to the extent where you hurt your own physical self. Like you have to protect your physical self. But I feel like oftentimes what hurts the human race and our evolution, potential evolution, is we don't go far enough spiritually or mentally. When we have these feelings, our body has these feelings, we ignore them, we shut it down. Not only are we limiting that other person, but we're limiting ourselves. You're limiting your ability to express love and admiration and to put that beauty and positivity into the world. So it's our duty to do that at all costs until, obviously the number one thing is to be alive, to continue to do it. But as human beings, like we need to love and admire and cherish and push people to be their best self. Like, that's our karma. And like adding that energy to their path, sometimes maybe even negative, positive or negative energy can be a catalyst to drive people to greatness. And I know in my life, I am so far from perfect. But as I've become more conscious, I even see in the past my unconscious actions drove people to be better. I look back at my friends and family and people I've let down, and I see how they're living now, and they learned something from me, and they grew themselves. And through that, I am able to get some sense of, like, I understand. It makes me better because I see, like, hey, I was wrong, but that person transformed that into something good, and I can do that too. And I also feel comfort that they're going to continue to do that in their life. And then now that I'm conscious, I know that that those things had to happen for me to learn, for them to learn. And the best thing we could do as we become conscious is handle our pain and transform it when possible. And it's really easy to point fingers at others and tell them to do that. I can tell you, for a long time, if you've been listening to the podcast, I have all these ideas in my head, but sometimes when it came to me actually executing them, I fell short, especially in the last year. But as of late, I just felt a call to follow through, practice what I preach. And it's been some of the most painful consequences. And also, though, like I said, the burden, the weight that's been lifted off my shoulders as a result of my willingness to take that pain, to feel it, to understand it, see it with clarity. I believe now I can be more, be who you can afford to be. I can be more as a result, and it's my duty to be more. This is not suggested. If I'm really living out of love for myself, my community, and mankind at large, then I have to do what I was put here to do. And that brings me to the last topic. So, sacrifice. Something I've been meditating on recently is you can either live with the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And I have struggled all my life knowing when to be disciplined and when to go for it. And it's easy to fool yourself. When something is easy, sometimes it is just easy. I've said before in the podcasts, and this is not to brag, but me going to play football at Harvard was the least difficult thing I've ever done in my life. It was handed to me on a silver platter. And while I appreciate the opportunity, and I am grateful, I was not prepared because I did not earn it. And that has been a very tough lesson. I really got I threw myself into the deep end, to be completely honest. Like, I accepted the offer, and that's on me. And I couldn't hold up my end of the bargain, and to be completely fair, I had no idea what I was up against. But when I was faced with that decision, pain of discipline, pain of regret, and I think I chose the path of discipline in that instance because I felt like I needed to do it for all the people who weren't afforded that opportunity, for people who couldn't. There's so many people that told me, like, oh, you got into Harvard to play football, like, you have to go, right? And this little felt sense in my body the whole time was telling me, don't do it. And it's so hard to know if that's fear and that's like, I'm going to regret not going. And it's so hard to know if that's your true self telling you, hey man, you're not ready for this. You didn't earn it. Red flag. And as aware as I've been of that situation over the years, I've been coming to terms with it, less bargaining, depression and anger and denial, more acceptance. I've just started to see the picture clearer and clearer, and I do think the universe, God, just brings situations back to you over and over until you get the right answer. And in 100 different ways, life gives me something that I haven't earned. I learned to not trust myself early on, which is wrong because I actually had a pretty strong moral compass from the get-go. And over time, I've let fear creep in and corrupt what I know to be true and right. And I've known who I am since a very young age. I've known what I felt like is the right thing to do from a very young age. And as great an opportunity as Harvard football is, and it is, it's amazing. I was not prepared. I was not ready. And I didn't earn it. And it's so easy to fool yourself. And it's so easy to delude yourself and say, like, I have to, I'm doing this because other people can't and they would, so I have to do it for them. And it's like, you can't do it for other people. You can't do it for anyone but you. And if it's the right thing for you, then that's what you have to do. And you got to be able to live with it. So I think this exodus is a result of me finally reconnecting with that original voice, facing fears that have come up, and I'm just grateful to be back where I started, which seems so silly, to dig yourself such a deep hole repeatedly over grief and the tragedies of life, and to know that you are basically the author of most of your pain. I'm still just like abundantly grateful. I mean, I've been given more than I could ever give in return, and now, like, I have to try to even the scale. And I felt that way for a while, but I haven't really accepted it. And I certainly haven't had a mass exodus like I had in the last few days. That feeling lifted off my shoulders. And finally just letting go. And that's not letting go. It's letting go of anything that's not reality. I think mental health these days, I suffered mental health issues for a long time. If you listen to the last 50 or so episodes, you will hear a man slowly, quietly digging himself out of a crisis. That supreme moral effort I talked about that Carl Jung prescribed. You can have a great talk therapist or a great family and support system, or you can do it yourself. Not necessarily advisable, but it might be your path. And you're going to fail over and over and over like I did. And you're going to disappoint yourself. You're going to disappoint other people. You're going to question whether you are worthy. You're going to bargain. You're going to be angry. You're going to deny. You're going to dissociate. And throughout that supreme moral effort starts with taking care of yourself, taking care of other people. And then we can finally take care of the world. And I think some people try to put the world first and avoid that first thing, looking in the mirror. So, from someone who has been navigating the stages of grief for 2 decades, if you're listening to this and this resonates with you, look up the 5 stages of grief. Think about dissociation. Think about what it would feel like to exit. And exit isn't avoiding. Exit is closure. It's dealing with it, closing the book, letting it go, no matter what the consequences are. And I can tell you the consequences are vast. And they always will be. And that's why this episode is called Sacrifice. Because you give up everything. And when you have nothing, that's when you really find out that you have everything. And it was never yours, and you never lost it. If you hear that and that you feel like that doesn't make sense, you think I'm crazy, just keep pushing after your desires in life. Whatever God or the universe has put on your heart to pursue, keep going, keep doing it. Because that direct path of desire is going to take you straight to where you need to be. And if you let fear interfere with your path, you just delay the reward. And if you let fear twist your desire into something that it's not supposed to be, you also delay. And I can tell you, as someone who has delayed this level of clarity and peace, I can tell you it's not worth it. If you can, you can't shorten the path, but you can keep it from getting longer. So stay on your path, keep pushing, take care of yourself. Until next time, this is Blaine, out.